What is going on, guys? Thank you for entering the chamber once again. We got a real special guest today. Andrew, say hi.
What's up, guys? Happy to be in the chamber today.
Yeah, Andrew is a personal buddy of mine, and he's here because he happened to be the Swiss champion from St. Louis, and ended up going well. What was your final placing exactly?
I think I was on the app like fifth, but on the UVS Ultra list sixth. So I ended up sixth
I mean, either
on the
way,
UVS Ultra.
that's a really good score either way. We're here to talk about his experience with St. Louis, his matchups, the whole nine, talk about his deck, and a little bit about like how we feel about the meta. So why don't you start with just like your time going to St. Louis? What was St. Louis like for you?
Yeah, so St. Louis was interesting. It was 95 degrees and humid. So I would not recommend the family trip in the summer there. It it was a cool setup though. The event was like surrounded by a million like fast food chains and stuff like that. So that was really nice, like very convenient. And it was there like a ton of hotels right next to the venue. So they did do a good job of actually like picking the location and all that. And then the event itself was actually pretty well run.
Yeah, I
Like
was
I
gonna say,
remember.
I've heard that like from a couple people actually, they said that there was like no issues and all the side events fired on time. Like it's very different than the stories we heard from like a lot of other events that have been going around. Just seems like everything worked out nicely.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to last nationals in Dallas when like I feel like we started the event like 45 minutes late, and then it's like hours between rounds randomly. Like, oh, we need to take a lunch break now instead of later because something. And like I understand stuff happens, but it feels like they figured it out because everything fired super quickly, honestly, and like even there was a point where I was like the last match, right,
Hmm.
in the round, and as soon as it ended, they started the next round. Like there was like like a 3 second turnaround. So I was like very impressed with Sean O'Brien and UVS for really stepping up their game on running these events timely. 2 days Swiss definitely is not ideal, but it,
Yeah, I still wish
it
they
is
could
what it
find a
is,
way.
though, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
There's got to be a way for them to figure out a way to fit 8 rounds in. Like if every other game can do it, like I know we're special or whatever, but there has to be some kind of way where they can find a way to fit in 8 rounds. Like
Yeah, and like I appreciate with the day two, like I think they've done a much better job like trying to make day two go faster. But at the end of the day, like I would have if I would have won my like top eight and then top four, like I would have missed my 7:30 flight, which was like the latest flight hour there. Which is kind of crazy to think, right? Like we can't play 4 matches, 5 matches with the last Swiss, and like
when they tell
in
you it's a 2 day tournament, they mean it's 2 whole
yeah.
days.
So
Like
I don't want to come with problems and no solutions. So like maybe it doesn't need to be 90 minutes. It can be like 75 minutes instead for these top cut matches. Because I mean we'll get into it. Mine was like the longest match in the history of UVS. It was like 2 hours and something minutes.
yeah, so
I abused the rules almost, right?
yeah, I
Um,
mean it was a close game. Yeah, so let's talk matchups.
Yeah, so going into the event, I was pretty set on playing Void, Rodan, and that was because I've been testing this deck for a while, and it was just unfair against most matchups. It was just like too much stats. Character pumps the speed, and then you play cards that can pump a lot of damage, and he's seven-hander with a billion card draw cards, and like so I was feeling pretty good with the most of the key matchups, right? So going into the event, I was prepared for like Toga 3 specifically, who seems to be topping a lot of events. I was prepared for Amajiki. Like I had the strategies down for kind of these big cards, Godzilla, right? Hold low blocks. Like had a pretty good plan in place, and my Swiss rounds were mostly that, to be honest. Like it was mostly like the matches that I prepped for. I played Toga twice. I was so my game one was against the Toga. It was like once you kind of know how to, like, you just need to block everything. If Toga can't get momentum, she's just kind of like
Kind of
plus
like a
three, plus
nothing burger
two.
of a character. Yeah, like a single
Yeah,
step.
which plus three, plus two doesn't like go that far when your character has like -3 speed on everything.
Yeah.
So that matchup was pretty good. And then the second game was actually a Ghidorah. And so, Richard, we had actually talked about Ghidorah before. We'll get into it. And
Yes, we
it just
will.
wasn't on our radar. Like we wrote off the character as like, yeah, it's just not good. I tried playing him a few times. It was like unplayable, right?
To be fair,
That
we did that right when the character got revealed and before like his card
yeah.
got revealed. Yeah, we maybe like jumped the gun a little bit on that one.
Yeah, we didn't really tinker with it. We just wrote it off as like, yeah, this guy, he bricks a lot and he can't kill anyone. And so anyway, so round two, I played somebody who was on Ghidorah. It was like, I mean, I think I must have like won the dice roll or something. I just like hammered him with Rodan stats and took game one, and then 60-minute rounds, right? Like 7-hander who literally can block like anything, right? So I unironically just didn't take damage game two and like timed him out for whatever it is, right?
It wasn't close. Yeah.
Yeah, just like stayed at 21 health and like, good luck. Game three was a really cool one. It was against Amajiki. It was Jacob Johnson, who's one of the Unfun Stuff guys. He's a really cool guy. It was my first time playing him, but I know him from some of these events.
Okay.
He was kind of like, I think he saw what was going on with, I practiced the matchup, and it's just like a race, right? Like I'm just literally going all out on playing as many cards as I can, and just hopefully I hold like a barrier shield or something and deal with it. And that strategy was successful. I was able to take it on him there. The fourth one was against Barlow. He was on all Rodan. And so I'm always reluctant, when I face Barlow. He's one of my good friends. I've practiced with him like a lot.
And I got
he's
to watch his deck on stream, and it looked really nasty. I mean, I don't know if it's just Rodan makes like any symbol look gross, or if it was like his list was really good, or 6 of one and half a dozen the other. But like he was on stream once. I don't remember who he was playing against, but I know who was playing. He was playing against Tam Cardwell. Yeah, against Tam Cardwell. And nothing against Tam or Jester, but like that game did not look close. Like he looked very in control. So when you told me you 2-0'd him, I was like, Jesus, like this is it. This is the time.
Yeah, I don't really know what happened. So, we were in game one. He won the dice roll. And it got to a point where he literally told me, like, we're at like turn 3 or 4. And he was like, as a friend, genuinely was like, you should just scoop. Like, my hand is that good. Like, it doesn't matter. And I was like, all right, just play it out really quick, right? And he ended up putting me to like 2. Like, something went wrong in the math, or I blocked something he wasn't expecting, or like something went wrong, right?
And
then I just clapped him on and then I, like he was fully committed out, realizing like, oh, what have I done, So I took game one in like this awkward sense of like he kind of like something went wrong, right? There was a miscalc, unfortunately. And then game two, I don't really remember, but everyone like, I hear, like David Toombs talking about, George Zhang has the best Rodan, and I heard a lot of people saying like, oh, this all Rodan that Barlow and Calvin, another guy who topped the running, is the best Rodan. I don't know, like the Rodan mirror felt like pretty good, honestly, in practice and in play, right? And so, I'm not sure. It felt like a pretty like good matchup, as long as they don't draw the nuts or something like that. And then round 5 got to play Tony, who's usually like the head judge, which was really cool because he's just like an awesome guy.
Yeah, he was really good guy.
Yeah, I mean he unfortunately he was on Toga 3 and there was a point in game 2 where he like runawayed, and then he realized like, why did I even bother playing this card when your next 4 checks? And like he got like mini tilted and not at me but at the game, like,
yeah,
this is so stupid, like, and the card that he put in my card pool was actually like a barrier shield, which doesn't count towards progressive, and it was just like the ultimate like, yeah, this deck's like screwed up, right? So yeah, there wasn't like a lot, of anything in that game, except it was just like a realization of like, yeah, this Rodan character is like doing things you shouldn't be doing, probably.
Character's messed up, yeah.
Yeah, being able to like cheat your checks it just makes it really strong. Match 6 was the feature match. Got to play Hawks on the stream. I think the most important thing to note about this one was that like the timer was actually wrong on the stream. Like going back and watching.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
So what happened was, so I took game 1 and game 2. It was my turn and there was 20 seconds left, right? And I said, Ryan, I want to make a statement. I'm going to give you a turn to try to kill me. And so I literally just like built one pass and was like, here, 10 seconds left, like take a turn.
Yeah,
good luck. Because and you know this, we've talked. At the last event in Las Vegas, I'm not going to name names, but I was there was 6 minutes left in the round. I was at full health on Jhin. I was holding 2 repeated 100% smash, my best 2 cards, and I literally said like, just go crazy. I'll let you know if I have anything. Like, go crazy. And I got timed out.
I only have one question. Have you played Balatro?
Exactly.
Have you played I gifted you Balatro over that. Have you done so?
Yeah, so like things came up that weren't really relevant to the game, and I was just like, and people were watching too because it was a win and it felt really bad, and so I hope that for whoever watches this, you can kind of take from my example of like, let the other person have a turn, and unfortunately I kind of knew he wasn't gonna kill me because my hand was like really good, but I gave him a shot, right? Sure. And that's what it's all about. So that was game 6. Game 7. So game 7 was the most interesting one, right? So I'm 6-0 at this point, and I'm trying to convince. I get paired with Travis, who obviously won the event on Elder Tagoro. I'm trying to convince him to ID because I'm like, I definitely don't have to play, and right. He's like, well, you got paired. It was like this weird pairing system, right? Where I was in first place, the only person undefeated. And so he got, like, the way the pairing system works is like everyone in the middle gets paired and then the bottom gets paired with the top, right? So he got like up paired into me. I got down paired into him, right? Okay. So he couldn't ID. And so we did the math. We figured out he can't ID, right? And so we play. I've not tested one bit against Elder Tagoro except with Patrick Toombs, who had this like mill out deck that wasn't like that it wasn't like real like testing for this, right? And so I win the dice roll. I literally like turn to like murder him, put him out like 2, and I'm holding like a bunch of blocks, and I'm like, yeah, this is like a pretty free game, right? And he on the backswing turn 2s me without the combo piece. He just gross. Hits twisting. He hits me with like 2 twisting, and he got them to enough damage, switched the damage to speed, and then found more damage to the point where I couldn't block either of them. And he did full 21 health despite my like -3 speed or whatever, right? And so at this point, I don't.
That deck played like 8 or 9 attacks or something. Like
he just kept hitting the like, when you discard this card +2 damage. He just kept ripping those, right? And so his twistings just got huge. And then he teamworked at the end, and I was like, all right, like, it's just a twisting deck, whatever. So I have no idea at this point how the combo works. I'm just like in my head, like, okay, whatever,
You just got high roll, no big deal. Like,
he got super lucky, right? Like, because I put him on, like, you're definitely dead if you pass back. He's at like 2 health or something, right?
Sure.
And he went for it. And his like facial expression, like, he's an emotional player. He was like, yes, it was like a this isn't supposed to happen expression of like a win, right? So I'm like, all right, whatever. So I have no idea that his deck's playing like 6 attacks and that he just like found 2 of them,
like, just all of them. Yeah.
So game two, same thing happened. I just bashed his head in, and so I don't even know what's going on because I killed him so fast. I killed him on like turn 3, like he built turn 2, and so I do not know what's going on in his deck. Right? I'm sitting here like with stopping for breakfast in my sideboard, like this guy's playing all actions. Like, I don't realize this. I'm like I didn't pick up on it. It's just like we haven't played enough UniVersus because of the way the world works of 7-handers in this game.
Sure.
And so game 3, we have a real game, right? And I'm like playing the game, looking at his discard pile, like so confused. I'm like, how you haven't checked a single attack in like 2-3 turns? Like scratching my head because I didn't know about this combo, right? I'm just scratching my head, and so I'm just like kind of playing the game, like we're having a real game. And eventually he plays like a Lunar Ring or something, and I block it with a barrier shield. And at this point he knew I like fucked up.
Now you see something. Now you see now. You done fucked up, that, don't you?
He like gave me the look like, oh, you just lost the game, because I didn't realize what was going on here, right? And then he does the combo. I have 1 barrier shield in my hand. How many barrier shields do I need to hold, right? I'm like,
Sure.
I don't need to like accumulate 3 barrier shields in my hand. And so he does this combo, he pops off, right? And I'm just like barrier shield, and he
like,
showdown. Yeah. And at that point, it was I realized at that point what was going on in this deck, and I he took that game from me. Well played. And if I would have realized this like sooner, I probably would have been fine, because I could have just held that second barrier shield in my hand instead of blocking the like 6 damage Lunar Ring. So yeah, like I just didn't know what was going on. I was trying to get cards out of my hand, because I did need to play attacks to win the game at this point, right?
Sure.
So that was my Swiss. The last round I D'd, so
Okay.
It wasn't a real round.
I mean, overall, sounds like, with an exception of like the guy who won, like, not to talk smack about any opponents, but it sounds like it was a very free, like, most of your matches, I think you said, were like 2-0 or 1-0s. Like, at no point did it seem like you were even like worried about like not getting there.
Yeah, the closest match was like the Jacob Johnson Amajiki match, because it's literally like I'm just racing you, like saying like you have to have it turn 2, or else I'm just gonna try to like bash your skull and kill you by turn 3.
I mean,
and
that's
like
the right.
he didn't, right? Like he was like, yeah, I was 1 turn away, and like.
Yeah, it's the right thing to identify. Like, Imajiki gets bigger and bigger every turn. Like, you're on a hard clock, so it's the right thing to identify. Like, you got to get in there fast.
And so other than that, it was kind of like I always had this win con of like win game 1 and then just play defense game 2, because like Void Symbol and 7-hander is just like, it's almost impossible to kill if you just decide you want to like play defense.
Yeah, you just don't want to die. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's essentially what I did against Hawks in the second game. It was just like I did that to Ghidorah. It's like, yeah. So that was Swiss, yeah. And then fortunately came in first place, which was cool.
That's pretty big. Yeah, first Swiss Jam.
Yeah, it was my. I mean, I've been practicing a lot for this event with intent to do something, and so it was a rewarding experience.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right. On that note, let's talk about top cuts. So we got it up here on screen. We can see that you got knocked out your second round. Let's start with round 1.
Round 1, I got Carson Panos, who's another good friend of mine from the community, and it was cool to be playing with him. Honestly, it was like, this guy is known for playing like 100 card plus decks, and he goes up to me and he goes, yeah, I'm like really seeing my cards now. I'm at 90. And I'm just like,
you know how I feel about that. Like, I'm a 60 card boy. Maybe if a deck needs to like really like never cycle or needs like a lot, I'll play at like 70. Like none of this 95, 110, like 564. Like, yeah.
So pretty hilarious that's like his thing, right? And he trimmed his deck to 90. First game was like we were both checking so terribly. Like I think I built like 3, he built 3 going second. Like we both couldn't like do anything, and then he eventually just like scooped it up when it was like completely like he had like 0 momentum, and I was like, he had like 3 health left, and it was back to me, and he just kind of like, it was like, yeah, this isn't gonna happen.
Yeah.
He had like 5 foundations on like turn 4. Yeah, it was a tough one to watch. He just checked terribly and like had all attacks in his hand, and like defense, right? So then game 2 was like, it was kind of like a boxing match where I was the boxer and he like a boxing match warm up where he was the bag, and it was literally like the guy couldn't even like do anything except play like defense, right? Like he had to incredible display to cancel like rejuve. He had to broken psyche to not die, and like I was just not letting him have a thing. He was runawaying, like he was just like hanging on for dear life. There was a point where I played like a tri-gravity beam, and I ripped out his vast hybrid Chimera Kraken, and at this point I had him on like lethal, except I forgot what zone he was holding. And so I picked the wrong zone. Yeah, like I picked like a high attack, and he had a high block. I was just like so excited to rip the Chimera Kraken out of his hand. So I like fully commit out for this like high, and then he just blocks it. And I'm like, oh, that was pretty dumb. Like I hope I don't get punished. And then he draws like 7 foundations, right? And then
you're like, no justice, yeah.
Yeah, no justice, right? I mean, he had like no momentum. I was at full health. Like it would have taken a real effort. But yeah, so props to Carson. His deck kind of failed him on game 1, and then game 2 he was just hanging on for dear life. So we were the first match done. It took like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then waited for the next round. So top 8. So I was kind of going into the day nervous about the Ghidorahs because I just had like no real practice into this deck. Like I understood what it was doing from the stream match and tri-gravity beam, and I was nervous about it, right? And so I kind of had this idea, this mental note of like, I'm just gonna like blast him early and make sure, if he checks the 2 check that just says Dragon of the Darkness Flame, like minimum 16 damage move, like I'm just not gonna let him like ever use it, right? And that's probably how you play, right? And there was a problem in the game plan, which was game 1 basically turns 2 through 4. He had this really obnoxious and no offense to the player Ben, like I would do the same thing if I were him. He had this really obnoxious like defensive combo. That was if you play there's a Korigiri card. What's it called, Richard?
It's like Dissolving the Conflict, I believe is the card. It should be up on screen right now.
Yeah, Dissolving the Conflict plus Disarming Glance. And like, so the way Disarming Glance reads is you can't add cards to your own hand. However, there's a loophole in this that you can add cards to your opponent's hand. And so Dissolving the Conflict adds a card to your opponent's hand, and the attack never resolves, and you can't add cards. And so for 3 turns in a row, I'm just like staring at him with, I play an attack, he does the combo, and I'm like, well, if I can't draw any cards, like I don't really want, like, what am I going to do? Like play 2 attacks and then have to build next turn, or like I'm better off just holding these attacks, building, right? And so at that point, he had like built up, a real stage, and unfortunately, the game got away from me, right? Actually, the way he killed me was a 6 attack string. Checking all 5s and 6s and committing every single resource, which is kind of funny.
So but the exact, even if you hit like a 4 or 5 instead of a 6, it was like no.
Yeah. Wow, but the real story for me, for game 1, and we'll get to this again in game 2, was that the match like arguably came down to a judge call, which at this point in top 8, there's literally a judge watching our game.
Sure.
And I know the game like super well. At least I would say so. Ben knows the game super well. He's like been around forever. He's like one of these guys everyone knows. Top cuts all the events, right? And so there was a play where we're using my phone to count the health, and so I take damage from a move on this lethal string, right? And I have high end, which is after you take damage, respond ready. And so I take damage, right? And I'm just kind of like looking at my board for a second, right? Because this is UniVersus and there's there's 20 things going on, and I'm the one who has to count the health, right? And so he, and not to his, he didn't do this maliciously, but he had already played his next card, right? And I said, hey, respond high end, and he was like, no, you missed the window. And I would say the same thing if I were him, like very understandable. And I'm like, the triggers on damage, I just did it with my finger. Like, I'm now looking at my board to see if I have responses. Like, it takes a second, right?
Sure.
I didn't like have in my head like immediately, oh, I'm gonna ready high end. Like, I didn't like stop the board state to do that. And so the judge, who was this is a tough position to be in, right? Because it's like clearly the game is going to be won or lost on this turn. And so the judge, calls the head judge over, and they make the call that I didn't respond fast enough. Fair enough, right? Like it was an impossible position for the judge. It was like unfortunate. Like ideally in a nicer world, maybe Ben could have been like, hey, do you have any responses? And I would have said yes. But he played the game at a normal pace. No harm, no foul. So anyways, if I would have had high end ready, I could have like done this move, right, where I put it on top of my deck, stack of 5, block the next one, and then I have a 4 on top, and I can remove that for -4 speed. So maybe I inch out another block, right?
Yeah, could have made a difference, yeah.
So like it literally like could have been the difference. And then he was fully committed out, right? So he was going for broke on this. So game 2, we're playing, and this is a real like burner of a game. It's coming down to like I'm either gonna mill out or I'm gonna kill him. Ben's in deadlock. I have my best deadlock piece, the Taiyaki Fanatic, and I'm holding double Ice Sword in my hand, right? And so I play an Ice Sword and smash him with it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna keep playing Ice Swords, until I can't anymore, right? I'm gonna play 3 of them this turn, committing his best foundations, and all are gonna be 10 damage. And so when I play my second card, I played like a filler card before. And he did the disarming glance, but without the combo, just the disarming glance, because he was going to get out of deadlock, right? And
okay.
So so smart move. Like he sees I have Taiyaki Fanatic. He's like, I don't want to deal with all these Ice Swords, right?
It's less than some Taiyaki, right? Not Taiyaki. Taiyaki Fanatic is the Gran Torino card. Yeah, it's less than some Taiyaki. Yeah, it's less than some Taiyaki. Yeah.
And so he's a smart player. He's like, I'm going to get out of deadlock. And his way of getting out of deadlock was idle work, right? And so in my head, I'm like, oh, he can't like use his idle work because he just doesn't want me to draw cards, because I played like multiple bites, which was going to let me draw a card, and he just didn't want me to like see more cards, whatever. And so like, we're playing the game again, a million things are going on. At some point he gets out of deadlock, and I'm like, I realize it on the next card, and I'm like, how did you get out of deadlock? Like, that's not possible. And then at that point, we realized that he idle worked while it was impossible to idle work, and the game was like literally broken at this point, because I had like basically given up, because I was like, oh, you're out of deadlock. Like, there's no way I'm going to kill you. And so I realized this, and we call the judge, right? And the head judge comes over, and he understands the situation is like, yeah, you probably would have killed him if he was still in deadlock, because you're gonna like smash him with 3 Ice Swords, and then like you have more cards, and so it was a really, really tough position again for the head judge and the judge watching, but they sided with me, and they gave Ben a game loss. And so the key, the real like story of these two games is like how complicated this game is.
And like case in point, so for anyone who's curious about the story about why this doesn't work, so you're not allowed to take an enhance or other ability for that matter if basically the first part of that ability is like illegal or like can't happen. So case in point, idle work says if the attack is blocked, you draw a card or discard a card, and then discard a card. If it's not blocked, if it deals no damage. Sorry. But while you're under disarming glance or dissolving glance, whatever the hell the card is, because you can't draw a card while that effect is live, you can't begin the effect of idle work, so you're not allowed to declare idle work and pay the cost. So using idle work to get out of deadlock is illegal while you're under that, which I'll be honest, I play incredibly fast, and I typically think I have like a very good grip on the rules. There's a 0% chance I would remember that in the heat of a game. There's almost like like not a thing I would think about. Like, yeah, game states are complicated. I mean, it's good catch on the judges. Like, I mean, like that's not something I.
No, I was the one that caught it because I was like, "How did you get out of deadlock? That's impossible."
Oh, yeah, case the point. Yeah.
We realized like, oh, he messed up. It was definitely harmless. Like, you know, but the key point to me is like how complicated this game is, and you know, we make jokes about it, but like the fact that in a top 8 match with a judge watching two players who know the game, know their decks, know the interactions, like both games came down to a appeal to a head judge call is like
wild.
That is a massive like red flag for like the game.
Yeah.
That like we need to like, you know, really have a think about like how do we make this game less complicated, that it's like determining games on like arbitrary judge calls that were done well. Like I appreciated both the judge and the head judge, like they were doing their best with the tough situation there.
Sure.
So then game three, this was like the longest game in UniVersus history. We you know, I'll fast forward. So I've taken a Ghidorah head. I make the observation at this point in the game, we're running out of time. I'm like, I literally can't throw any attacks at him because he has enough of these like plus or minus damage, you know, cards that he can literally go back to 10 health at any time he wants to. And we're eventually going to get to the game state where it's decided by percentage health. And so there's this stupid rule, and I mean that, I don't say that lightly, it's a stupid rule that Ghidorah counts at being at full health. No matter how many heads he's lost, his health is at 10. And so despite me understanding the game state, I now have this idea, right, where if I can't kill him outright, I cannot play like attacks because he's just going to take the ones that are strategic and be at full health. Because we're both like, there's not enough time left to play the game for a kill. Like we're both, we know where this is going, right? And so I kind of make the read. My hand's not good enough to kill him, and so for like 2 turns, I just kind of like build and pass under the impetus. I'm at 21 health, full health. I'm like, I'm just not gonna let him hit me. I've been doing this all day. Like,
sure.
I've been doing this all yesterday, where I'm just not gonna let anyone hit me, and I'm gonna play like ridiculous defense as a 7-hander, and I'm gonna draw a billion cards and whatnot, right? And so eventually we do the tiebreaker, you know, rules. It goes turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, sudden death. I'm full health. He's at full health. I'm like, okay, once I get my last shot at this thing, I'm gonna kill him for sure. Like it's almost impossible for Ghidorah to deal with a 7-hand size character who's been sculpting, right? Like yeah.
Sure.
And so at this point, also going back, like I'm also making this decision in my head because he's holding 2 cards going into this last turn, so he has not sculpted a hand properly, right? Like, and I'm holding like every zone. I got barrier shield. I'm like, I got cape. I'm so good.
Right.
Like yeah. And I'm just sticking at 10 foundations. Like I'm not going to get hit by a deadlock or anything. So I'm feeling really like comfortable, right? So you know, sometimes you just draw the nuts, right? And so he plays like this. So he opens Ice Sword, commits like my Can't Escape Me, and I'm like, okay, that to me is a major red flag. He didn't hit incubating. He didn't hit spooky. Like he does not have it right now. He is looking to find it. Like he's going to draw some cards, right? And so, you know, I deal with the Ice Sword, whatever. Second Ice Sword comes out.
You're like,
yeah. At this point, I realized like this might be a bad turn for me. He hits the spooky, so I've lost my like free block at this point, which is unfortunate. I only have 1 high block left, and it's a barrier shield. His deck played like very, very few highs. This was like 2 of his only highs probably. So I'm like, I need to keep this barrier shield cape. You know, get rid of this Ice Sword. Like, you know, let's go to the next attack. So he plays the like stupid Hiei card that lets you know, draw a card and like gain 2 health.
Oh, Sword of the Darkness Flame, not Drown the Darkness Flame, but Sword.
Yeah, Sword of the Darkness Flame, and I don't know if I guess he found what he was looking for, right? And so I deal with this Sword of the Darkness Flame, no problem. You know, again, this is attack 3. I've now dealt with that one. Attack 4 comes, and it's Tri-Gravity Beam. At this point, I'm like, okay, this is getting a bit challenging.
Close. Yeah, a little scary.
Yeah, so you know, like I deal with the tri-gravity beam. I still have like 3 cards in hand. I have a ultra regen. Like I can't take any damage at this point, but I'm in the back of my head saying like I can fully commit out on any of these. Like if I like strategically block to commit myself out, I can grab a barrier shield and just deal with whatever's, you know, like check a 5 on the barrier shield and then I'm good because I have all the zones at this point. Like I except high, and I know he's played all his highs.
Sure.
So I deal with this. Then he plays like another tri-gravity beam. And at this point, he has now cashed my cape. He's cashed 2 cards with tri-gravity beam, and I've full blocked 4. I'm out of cards at this point, and he did hit me, unfortunately. Like he actually, I could have dealt with it, but he used disarming glance offensively, so I couldn't use like any of my card draw that I had to potentially pick up a mid block and block this thing, and so unfortunately I was not prepped for the 6-hander with like a 30% attack ratio to
just drawing like 5 off the top, yeah.
Literally the best attack string like in the history of the game with double ice sword into like double tri-grab.
Ojiro 2's in the corner being jealous, yeah.
Yeah, so you know, props to Ben because you know, if he was one card short on that string, he definitely would have lost the next turn. And yeah, so you know, it was like this 2-hour match again. Like I was the reason that potentially Ben like missed his he conceded in game 3 against Travis because you know he had to get home, and it's probably my fault because our game went way overtime, like because of the rules, right? Like we went like 45 minutes over the 90 minutes, and you know it's like and they gave them like 5 minutes because everyone's watching our game, and it's like a sudden death. He kills me with like, you know, he's like fully going for it. Like they gave him like 5 minutes to like recover after that game. So
I know for me, like at home, like waiting for that result to come in, I was like edge of my seat the whole time. I kept going back to look like, yeah, that was man. I was sad to hear when you lost because you were trying real hard. You wanted this one, but
yeah, so. and look, it was a great game. You know, I think I you know obviously thought about it. I played it correctly to just keep going for sudden death, and then all I had to do was hit him once. But unfortunately, that's the way it goes.
For sure. Hey, there's always next time. On that note, let's talk a little bit about this Rodan deck.
Yeah, so like at the end of day 1, you know, as the Swiss champ, and I think David Toombs came up to me. I was talking to Sam Tate. Sam Tate had helped me a lot with practicing and testing, and you know, David Toombs goes up to me. He's like, you know, I guess you don't need to play combined firepower because you know you'll notice that my list had 0 combined firepower. The card everyone was saying was broken, and I was like, well, actually, like, I was like, I wish I had combined firepower actually, like in the sideboard at the end of this thing, and so like I think the moral was like. The character was pulling weight. It's not combined firepower. That's the problem. It's the Rodan giving all the speed is and looking at his cards is the problem. Like you can play the more control-y combined firepower list, or you could play the more aggressive list like I was playing, or you could play it on all, or you could play, you know, like all roads are going to get you to that shot at the top cut.
That's kind of where I'm at on combined firepower too. A lot of people I know think it's like, you know, like the new crazy card, and I think it's getting a lot of how to articulate it. I think it's picking up a lot of flack that's really coming off of like Rodan and to extension Ghidorah, but Ghidorah is like a separate topic. Like I don't think the card is like terrible or anything, but I think it's a little overrated. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I was building my deck, I did not have Ghidorah on my mind, right? But being able to block his like very reasonable mid attacks, like flow cards with combined firepower would have almost certainly like won me that match, right? And so like sure. I was teched for like everyone is consistent in their, you know, I've watched a lot of these videos. Everyone was teched for throws. Everyone thought about Godzilla throw deck and Byakko throw deck. Those decks did not show up, and so everyone's sideboard had like 5 cards that were useful blanks. And 5 cards. And I was also teched against because, you know, playing with Sam Tate. Sam Tate had this like flashes anti-Rodan list. it worked, right? And so I was playing like top pro heroes in the sideboard for like, get rid of flash and like, so I just did not have in hindsight, like I needed combined firepower for these like control matchups where you just get a free mid block. So yeah, that was kind of the regret of the format. We'll talk a little bit more about the meta, but everyone had it wrong. Everyone had throws on their like sideboard top of mind, and it was just wrong.
So if you're not playing combined firepower, let's talk about what you were playing. So like you're playing like a 65 card list, like pretty close to the minimum. I want to say it was like 65, 66.
Yeah, so it's like it's a 65 card list with 20 attacks, which is like pretty normal for 7-hander, maybe like a little light for aggro 7-hander. But the thing is, like, the difference that I was playing between like George Zane's list, which was like all 4 diffs, and a lot of the other Rodans, was that I was just playing the best void cards possible, and my read on Rodan was a little different than, hey, you have combined firepower and everything. Mine was like, I can play 5 diffs galore and just like not have to worry about it because I can see my checks and I can manipulate with draw and just always check a 5 or 6 and like get stupid stats rewarded for it. There were a lot of games where I would open Ice Sword and I would commit out your problem foundation and I would just make the Ice Sword so big that I killed you immediately. Like it would end up as like a 15 speed, like 18 damage Ice Sword with that stunned out your only out. Like so that was kind of the theme of the deck, was like Rodan can provide a lot of speed. Supersonic Flight is like +6, +3 in Rodan.
Gross.
Like, yeah, if you just play these like big attacks, like people aren't going to be able to block more than like 1 or 2, right?
Yeah, and so incredible card quality across the board.
That was the idea. Shout out to Barlow. Barlow had put me on Total Erasure Binding like a month before the event, and he was absolutely right. Like this card just says, like in the mirror matchup, like, forget about it. Like, yeah, like turn off your speed hate, and I have mine. I've never pulled off the combo, even though my deck could in theory do it. It's just in there for that and powerful 3. And this card won me a lot of games. Like people would. I open Ice Sword and I don't even use the momentum, and people are just like scratching their head the way I was scratching my head against like Travis's deck, and they're like, why aren't you like making this thing bigger? And then they just sell out for the block, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna like dump 6 damage on Total Erasure and kill you with that instead. And I was playing like Elasticity as a 3 of, should have been a 4 of. I was playing Red Riot's the coolest as a 4 of, and Supersonic Flight. So I was just pumping like stupid damage and stupid speed on every move, and it's like I mean, even like today I was playing some games to practice, see, is Ghidorah like the best character by far, and like the only way to beat him is like this Rodan strategy of just too much stats.
Gotcha.
So yeah, the engine was like these really powerful attacks. And then just enough like 6 checks and 4 block mods with like high end and Supersonic Flight that you're just like abusing your opponent with incubating to like on offense. You're like, oh, I'm gonna like remove this whatever card, -1 speed, +4 speed, like stupid stuff like that is just like
just incredible. Yeah, just like I said, just incredible value. Like you're not doing anything like super unique, but you're just playing like core fundamentals like card draw, committing target, like problems, big stats, like you're just everything you do is a little bit better. Like us Magic players, we call that like when in doubt, jund them out. Like you're just playing like big value, and it worked out really well for you.
The only like real change I made before the event, like I'd been playing this list generally for like a bit, was I made the read that Lessons from Taiyaki was actually like the deadlock piece that Void should be playing, not Fruits of Our Labor, because everyone, myself was included, was on Fruits as like the deadlock threat, and Lessons from Taiyaki is just so much better. And also like I got some decent value out of that card. Like typically that card, you're never gonna like cancel like the game winning in hands, but you're gonna make them like flip a 1 diff to avoid like your cancel, right? Which is good value. Like commit to flip a 1 diff is pretty good. So I was getting like some cheeky like value out of that card the whole day, like wherever I could. And then it would have won me that game against Ben that the judge won me instead. So yeah, that I think that was like the Void Deadlock piece for sure that everyone should kind of make the read on. That's the one to play, not Fruits.
Okay, I mean that's kind of neat. Like I know, like for me, that card's never impressed me that much for what it does. But like, you know, we play with some other like deck lists, and it came up sometimes. But the Deadlock is scary. Like you said, you're playing these like powerful attacks that can like commit target foundations, or they get huge, or they block out your character, or like Titan Cliff is like a fake 5 diff that like, you know, all these like power cards. Getting to like replay them is like really scary. Like the Deadlock is no joke. I think the issue with Fruits of Our Labors is that it's ultimately like not as much of an offensive Deadlock. Like it pushes them further in and they lose a card, but like it doesn't help you like actually kill them outside of like they just have less blocks. And getting to replay an attack can be the break point.
Yeah, it was just like if you play an Ice Sword and you get to pick it up, it's probably game. Like that Ice Sword. So like, you know, I don't know if we should wait till meta talk, but like Ice Sword should go like that. Like the quote of the weekend was like, I heard this a few times. Like I was alive to anything except Ice Sword, and then they played Ice Sword and I died. It was like that was the theme of the weekend.
I remember like when Yu Yu Hakusho first came out, and everyone was high, and I don't not to talk shit, but everyone was high on Battle R release because of Tombs, and that card is good, but it's like very boring, right? Like even Walk the Dog went like oddly slept on for a while. Like everyone said it'd be good, and then like, you know, no one talked about it. But I remember playing it with like Toya of all things, just like a fun brew, and I was like, bro, this card's secretly sick, and you're like, there's no way, and then you died to it, and you were like, oh, this card's secretly sick, and now the cat like. It's out of the bag. The cat's out of the bag a little bit. If you're watching this, anyone watching this right now, and you don't have a playset, you should really go get a playset. Like, card is messed up.
I think the 4 cards of the weekend were Ice Sword, Broken, Barrier Shield. Like, if you look at the top cut list, like people forgot when Genkai's Guidance came out. And in fairness, Barrier Shield wasn't as good against younger Tagoro when he was just like ignoring progressive blatantly.
Yeah.
But like all the top cut lists that could play Barrier Shield were on 2 or 3 of them. Like that card was like Barrier Shield lost me one of the games against Ben too. I like dumped all my momentum into an EX move and Barrier Shield. And I'm just like,
could have had a VA,
of course, right? Yeah. So it was Ice Sword, Barrier Shield, Tri-Gravity Beam, and I think those were really the 3 actually.
I mean, it's a messed up set of 3. Like
Walk the Dog, which like was carrying the Chaos symbol almost like this Black Abyss Walk the Dog combo, which, you know, it unfortunately, like I think the reality was that Amajiki like placed pretty well in tops and did well and it just wasn't enough to like beat the Rodans in the room and the Ghidorahs. Like the characters on Chaos, other than Amajiki, just like couldn't get enough like leg up. But Walk the Dog is just too much. It's like most of the time it's trivially a 4 diff as a 6 low 6 stun 1 powerful 3. Like Walk the Dog should go, Ice Sword should go, and then Barrier Shield is like an actual good interaction card, appropriately costed. Very hard to play as a 6-hander. Like fair enough if you're going to play that right.
I think you still play it as a 6-hander, even though it's a little more awkward. I think you still jam it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean I think that's kind of the like meta calls. Yeah.
I was gonna say it sounds like we're in the meta now. So that brings us to meta. You can see here up in the background that we have the upcoming like Attack on Titan set, which comes out, you know, at the time of this recording in about pretty much exactly a month actually. It's July 21st right now. So A, I want to talk a little bit about the meta where we're currently at, and B, what do you think Attack on Titan is going to do to it?
Yeah, so I think the reality is, like, if you look at the pie chart, this game has like the best meta of all games. Like, you know, I don't follow that many card games, but, you know, on Facebook, I see what goes on in Yu-Gi-Oh! And Lorcana, and like, typically their charts are like, you know, the top deck is like minimum 40% played, and it's almost like greater than 50% of top cuts, like just the top 1 deck, right? And so if you're gonna comp to that, like, yeah, you're right, you know, we pat ourselves on the back, diverse meta, but like in reality, I think in this event, St. Louis was like the event where people showed up with their best decks and they brought it. There were like very few actually like playable decks if you wanted to win this event, right? And like you saw that with Ghidorah obviously being the one that nobody thought of. We'll get to that in a sec, right? But he was cracked. Rodan was obviously, Amajiki was obviously, and like nobody really knew about the Elder Togoro thing. We'll get to that in a sec. But like other than that, like you saw like some rogue decks, like Tam was playing Jester, Ryan was playing Hawks, and like good for them. But that is like a exception versus the rule. And like generally speaking, I think our game, people are just going to play what they want to play, and that's a great thing. But like if you are going to events to try to win the event, like you really should have been on Rodan or Amajiki or Ghidorah if you knew. Right?
You should have been on like messed up Godzilla characters
yeah.
or like Amajiki. Like I'm actually gonna like right here like on my phone because I've got a picture of it. I'm gonna pull it up and see if there's like anything that we're missing, just in the interest of being thorough. But I don't think it's much.
I mean, like Togo was probably like most played or second most played, but like I honestly don't think that deck can get there in like the meta we're in, where it's just like people are just gonna block your moves and you're not gonna be able to do your thing.
That's really it. Like Ryan actually had a pretty good run, and then obviously Tangemin, because Tangemin's deck was like unfair and a whole new like arena of unfair. But everything else, I mean, like there's a couple of random decks that got up there, but they didn't go very far. And otherwise, it's like just after round one, right? You've got one Rodan, one Ghidorah, two Ghidorah, three Rodans, three. Yeah, so your first like top 8 is literally like 3 Rodans, 3 Ghidorahs. Sorry, I'm miscounting that slightly because you also have a Hawks, an Elder Shiguro, and like an Amajiki. Yeah, like.
Yeah. So I mean, unless you're like.
Oh no, I'm just bad at math because it goes to 9. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the real story of this event was like the two best decks in my opinion were the Ghidorah Void deck and the Elder Togoro Death deck. Both of these were doing something that like shouldn't be allowed, like loopholes in the rules, like straight up. I think Travis, I'm pretty sure I watched his video. He said like, yeah, this shouldn't be allowed, and it's like so blatant that Disarming Glance combo is like not intended. It's just like not written properly for the game rules. So like the combo of Disarming Glance and Dissolving the Conflict is just like not as God intended clearly, and like we should probably be fixing that. That is like a defensive piece is just like just enough to extend the game for Ghidorah to like find his pieces and then he forget about it, right?
Yeah, lock your opponent out of drawing for the turn is like such an absurd like ability, and it turns off cards that like you can't use things like Titan Cliff, for example. It turns off cards like Reju Smash. Like it just makes your opponent kind of have to be like, I had these 6 cards and I should probably just build. Like, yeah, it's very messed up.
Yeah, it just like breaks the game when you're not allowed to draw cards in a game where drawing cards is literally fundamental to every single turn is like the interaction, right? And so you've broken the interaction when you play this comp, and like good for him for figuring this out. But like UVS, please do something that is not what you intended when you made Disarming Glance. That there's a loophole, you can add a card to somebody else's hand, right? And then Travis's deck was just like. There's no chance that they had tested that interaction where you can Sports Festival champ and make your 20 damage move a 20 speed move with that is uninteractable on like half the symbols. It's literally just like Barrier Shield or Cape, which he has answers for both.
And like, if you can interact with it, you need to interact with it at least more than once because he has answers to the interaction.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like a stupid interaction that like clearly is not as God intended. And like UVS, we should do something about both of those because they're just stupid.
I have wanted Twisting to go for a while because it's a card that either sees no play or the decks that it does see play in, it's just absurd. Like, they have made it very clear they are not a fan of cards that just ignore progressive difficulty. You should have to work to earn it. And the bottom line is that Twisting is not a card you really have to work to earn it in, at least in decks where it's good. Like, I know someone's going to see that and be like, well, I can't use it in, like, my Death Mineta 2 deck with no damage pump. I'm like, okay, sure, but, like, you're at the X4 tables on round 5, homie. Like, good deck, it's going to be insane.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Crow and Frog got banned. Everyone was like, yeah, thank God, right? But the thing is, like, that was replaced with DNL, Dual Needle Launch, which is a much worse card in fairness. Like, you have to pay health to use it. You also have to like deal with this card being like extremely low stats, and like that seems like arguably like annoying but fair, right? It's a 5 diff that's like a real 5 diff. But like Twisting being a 4 diff that like on Mimic or on some of these characters that just do the thing for free, and like literally it's their entire identity is this card, just seems like a bit of a red flag to me as well, where like you can leave it, but like it was a problem with younger Toguro. It's like it was a problem with Tokoyami. Like, who's next, right? That's the question. It's Elder Toguro now. Like, at what point do we just kind of say like, yeah, cards should probably have to play the game properly? Even if Elder Toguro wasn't using the ignore progressive difficulty part of the card, it's like this card is just like caused way more damage than it's brought to the game, and like it doesn't seem like a bad idea to just get rid of it, and no one's going to be upset.
Yeah,
right?
I that's my biggest hope is our next ban list is we see that card is gone. Like,
I'd love, as I've said, I'd love to see Ice Sword and Walk the Dog gone too, because those cards are just unfair value. It's like, even Vast Hybrid Chimera Kraken is like so frustrating to play against, but it like.
And that card only hits one of your defensive pieces. Ice Sword hits all copies of one of them. Like,
you haven't played UniVersus until you've built like 4 of your best foundation and gotten, you're feeling so good, and then you get Ice Sword and you're just like, I don't want to play this
I'm
game.
dead. Yeah, no, I'm dead.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So I think moving to the second part of your question, my read would be that I think we're going to see a lot of like AOT only. I forget what that format is called.
Spotlight.
Yeah, because it's just like the AOT cards are there's a few ones here or there that have come out that are very powerful. Like the card you can play for free from your discard pile is obviously like an issue in like Ghidorah.
Oh yeah, like the desperate maneuvers or whatever.
Yeah, like trivial cost, play it from your discard pile, and then Ghidorah obviously can play another attack from his discard pile. For like this guy, impossible to brick now, right? And so like there's some random cards here or there, but like I think we're gonna have to play AOT only, because these cards are not like, there's no character on there, in my opinion, that's going to be able to compete with like Rodan and Ghidorah and Amajiki. Like, they're just not.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I would kind of agree with that too. Like the characters are kind of nutty, like stats wise, like 633s and 634s, and I don't even think I've seen a 5-handed. I think about it. I think they've all been 6s and 7s. There might be a 5-handed that I can't think of, but like there's some chonky 6s. But yeah, it's so fundamentally different, and they want to experiment with blitz as opposed to having enhances on attacks. I also think that they should, like, at least for like a month or two, or maybe for just for some amount of time, be like, guys, just play Spotlight, give us some feedback. It's good for people who are coming in because they're into Attack on Titan. Like, it's good for us because we get to play test these changes. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Like, they should definitely be doing AOT Spotlight, because if not, it's just like they're just gonna get overshadowed. Like, I don't think any of the characters, as far as I saw, have like defense on face, which is
very
like,
little, if any.
You're just gonna get blown up by the characters that have stats on both sides, right? Like, so.
Absolutely. And like just on top of my head, but like, why does Titan Cliff gets to build all of the backups? Like, I need to see if like the backup character, I think she's life death, so it's okay. But man, imagine if she shared a symbol with Titan Cliff, the character who cares about backups.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
what's
look,
the name, the Doctor?
Yeah, I mean, you and I know, like, we've been talking about how Titan Cliff was like the kind of like another one that's been under the rug for a while, and like the really top players have figured out that Titan Cliff is like insane value. Like, you just check a 5 or a 6 more than you check a 3, and when you check a 5, that card's like absolutely broken. And so like, yeah, I mean, you and I are on the same page there. Like, that card is messed up. It will continue to be messed up. Like, there's all sorts of crazy interactions. So for me, I've seen some there's like a Mikasa deck that like is basically a Mirko deck that is basically a Bakugo deck. Like, they kind of have these like themes that you see coming around. So for me, I'm excited about the transform piece, because that's like Factum 2 was super cool for me. Factum 1 just like sucked too bad that you couldn't play Factum because you couldn't get to Factum 2 fast enough.
Yeah, it was tough to do that consistently.
But yeah, like the whole transform thing is really interesting to me because the abilities are way better on the transform character, and it seems a lot easier to hit than Factum 2.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of characters that power up or change. Again, you know, I started as a Dragon Ball Super player, and I've said this in the past, and I'll say it again. Like that mechanic, like I probably played genuinely like over 1,000 games of Dragon Ball Super because it's like all I did during COVID. So I played it a shit ton. Awakening, which is the mechanic for like transforming. Here it's transforming, but Awakening is what it's called there. Awakening your leader felt almost as good on game 1,000 as it did like game 2. Like getting to like power up your like character you're playing as, or especially when you have to like earn it, like it feels really good. Like, so I think it's going to be one of the best changes. I'm really stoked to play with, because you know what I mean, I'm like an air gamer. Like, I'm stoked to play with the guy where like when he like clears his card pool, like the card goes to momentum like once per turn, and he burns momentum for like plus or minus like a bajillion speed. Like, I think that guy is going to be neat depending on like, you know, how much like card pool clear we can have. Like, you know, he plays very well, thing that snaps momentum. Like, I think he'll be neat. Yeah, I just worry about like this them adding a 300 card set to like standard with all the stuff we have. Like, that's going to be like chaotic if they do that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be an expensive set. So, you know, buying product in this set is a no-brainer because you will get your money back. Like, I will personally guarantee you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll
get your money back, right?
Like, this might be the first, this might maybe be the first time I get a Chrome. You know, crack 2 cases. It could happen. Like,
yeah,
probably won't, but it could.
Yeah, 300 card set with you know, cool new IP and like almost certainly AOT Spotlight. Like, cards are already expensive. Like, this is going to be a step up.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right. Well, this has been enlightening. I enjoyed our time. So takeaways. Ice Sword is bad. You should definitely not buy a playset of it. Walk the Dog, also bad. Don't play it at all.
The most common thing I hear about Walk the Dog is, yeah, I don't want to spend $50 on, you know, one Walk the Dog because I know it's going to get banned. And like, that's just like silly, right?
Yeah, I'm glad I got a playset like for like set, like when I bought like a case of Hakusho, that game with 3, I had to buy 1. It was like $20 at the time. Like,
yeah,
because everyone was on Battle R release, so like that felt good. Yeah. But yeah. Right now, like assuming we do go, you know, we do go to like standard as opposed to Spotlight, it's gonna be really tough for a lot of these like AOT characters to compete. I do kind of agree with that. So I hope we see some Spotlight. I know some people will not like that because it's kind of going away from like the cross universal stuff, but I think it's important from just like a data perspective because they're trying so much with Attack on Titan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So closing thoughts, you hit it. Like, let's ban Ice Sword. Let's ban Walk the Dog, and you know, let's keep that trend of like making the game more simple because top 8, both, you know, 2 of 3 games were judge calls. It's like that's kind of a huge, you know, think about that, guys. Like, let's not beat up on them for trying to simplify the game.
Yeah. Mental load jokes are funny, but like it's a serious problem.
And let's errata these like combos that are clearly not as God intended.
Yes. We didn't, you know what we didn't talk about was Ghidorah. We should talk about that for a second. We didn't really talk about that. So when Ghidorah came out, we didn't really see any of his cards. And you and I both didn't think he would be that good because, like, you know, it was obviously had these tools from Hiei. And the question was like, well, what do you do after that? And as it turns out, you run like his cards because a lot of his cards are messed up. And then you just play the few remaining slots you have, like just the best cards on that symbol. And you just play like, again, crazy high card quality. Very similar conceptually to what you're doing. Just some of the trimmings are different because, you know, like Ghidorah and Rodan are functionally different characters. And what's really interesting to me is that historically characters that don't modify stats have never been that competitive in this game. And technically Ghidorah is a character that does not modify stats. Granted, this is a little disingenuous because he fetches foundations that modify stats for him. And he'll grab what he needs for the matchup. So it's a little disingenuous, but technically he's a competitive character that doesn't pump stats on face or reduce stats on face. That's kind of neat.
Yeah, you know, look, another thing, talking about changes, like, Ghidorah would not have been as good of a pick if the rules were not that he's always at 10 health for tiebreakers. because it's like it's a silly rule, right? Where you could literally have killed like 1/3 or 2/3 of their health, and they're considered at full health. And like in our game, if you're gonna play Ghidorah, like you're gonna take 30 minutes minimum for a game typically, unless your opponent like just ignores that your discard pile has the 16 damage Dragon of the Darkness Flame on face that just auto kills you if you overextend. But like pending your opponent interacting and making reads, like that game's going to take at least 30 minutes. And Ghidorah is going to go to time and lose if the opponent takes like 1 or 2 heads, right? And so like, again, I do wonder if for an event, like Ghidorah will go down some if they make a errata there to the rules, which they should. But bar none, like his card quality and being able to play anything from your discard is like insane, is much better than you or I realize, because it's like you play 1 copy of Plummeting Punch, you play 1 copy of Gently Theft, you play 1 copy of whatever you need, like Gently Theft. Oh, you went to Deadlock. Here's discard.
You're gonna get messed up now. Yeah, you messed up.
Yeah, right. Like, and then you literally just like you have these like little tricks to like one of his cards that his best like foundation is a 2/6 +/-1 damage always. That is deflect too.
Why is that card a 6 check too? It didn't need to be a 6 check.
It's just like insane that card is deflect too also, right? Because like your opponent's like putting you committing out for exact 10 damage, and then you just deflect and say like, okay, I win next turn because you committed out and have the 16 damage card in my discard pile.
That character makes deflect look really good. That's also just another thing. Yeah, like it's a lot of little things we kind of missed.
So like I think he just like he plays Barrier Shield like stupid well, because you overcommit in thinking that you can actually kill him, and then he plays Barrier Shield, and then he just you don't get there, and then he has 16 damage in his discard pile on demand. So it's like, I mean, I've been playing with him. It seems unlosable going first. It's like the only way to beat him is to just wear him down early, so he's at like 1 head very quickly, and have to play like an honest defensive game instead of just like doing these stupid tricks to keep his health at 1 or 2, and then you never actually like kill him. So yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming in.
It's been fun. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, man. If you made it through this, guys, make sure you like and subscribe. And once again, thank you for Into the Chamber. I'm going to catch you in the next one. Bye now.
See you guys.